Good afternoon, my listening audience. This is Woody Kamara from the Management 303 Session 3 class. I will be presenting to you on a topic called Human Resource Management. My main focus will be on job analysis and job design. If the instructor enter the class and tell you, imagine you are the HR officer for Harvard Supermarket, the store manager complained that newly hired cashier often quit their job within 3 months, saying it is too stressful and not what they expected. What will you do as an HR for that company? First of all, you must identify the problem. That is, you have to use the step of job analysis to solve that problem easily. Job analysis is needed in identifying the decreased turnover, hiring, or creating current training program for cashier. That is, you got to identify this problem. What caused the cashier to quit their job? What make them to be so stressful? What made the job to be so stressful? And you have to correct existing document. That is, the job description, the performance appraisal, period exist interview report. When you understand you have to first of all understand the company policy, procedure, and general supermarket operation before you get to solve that problem. And how can you do that? You have to select method for data correction, and which is the common appraisal, which include observation, interview, and questionnaire. Observation, you have to first find a time you sit and watch a cashier performing daily tasks to document actual job activities. That is, for interaction with customer, whether she receive cash or she disperse cash, and that you got to understand what really she really mean, or what her activity is really there. Don't know how stressful it is, because as a cashier you are not to receive cash and disperse cash, record cash, no, or presenting receipt. You got to have certain limitation as a cashier. So you, the HR, have to observe that. When you are observed, then you get to her or get to the cashier to interview the cashier. You got to do an interview to find out. And when you interviewing, you got to ask the cashier, what are some of these challenges, or what are some of the activities you are doing? Although you are marking it down, but you have to ask her. Then you also ask some former employee, what made you to quit this job? Really explain in detail what are the difficulties that you facing within this area. And also supervise to understand the expectation, difficulty, and precision of the role. From that, then you have to watch the cashier performing daily tasks to document all these activities. The next one is, that is, you got to go to questionnaire or survey. You got to do your own survey. You got to use structured tools to correct quantitative data on task skill and work daily log. That is the frequency for multiple employees. As I said previously, you got to go from employee to employee, all these part employees. You got to ask, what are those things that they do or they need to really help them in their job, or what are those challenges they're facing. And finally, when you have to get a responsibility of job description. You got to write your own job description, or read your job description first before you writing your own. After doing your interview, you do your observation and you do your questionnaire. Then you got to get to the process of writing down the job description. From the job description, you're going to analyze what are those challenges they are facing and what can you add to that job description. And that is, you process customer transaction efficiently and accurately. Handling sale using cash registry or of sale. A POS system ensuring correct pricing, accurate cash handling, and proper recording of cash transaction. That alone can help you to understand the cashier activities and how can you handle it. One of the main strategy is to maintain the clean and organized checkout area. That means the cashier have to clean the area and check organized check area to keep the desk up. You got to keep the desk counter tightly, replenish bag and supply. So if you may ask, what are some requirements for job specification? Or in your diary, you got to write what are some requirements for job specification. Basically or mathematical and computer skill. You have to have the basic and mathematical computer skill as a cashier. You can be a cashier, you don't know how to calculate, or you don't have a computer skill, or you don't know math. A cashier have to have the ability to perform arithmetic calculation quickly and accurately to operate a POS system or cash registry with competence. A cashier has to be effective communication and customer service skill. You have to have that. So, because when you have effective communication and customer skill, you're gonna be a good cashier. A cashier also you have to have a good verbal communication. You have to have patience and they have to have the ability to interact politely and advance customer while managing occasional stress in a fast-paced retail setting. So, okay, let's go to another question. If your teacher also has another question that a teacher may bring, that would be a hospital receptionist. When tasked with reviewing the role of a hospital receptionist and made complaint about ongoing patient waiting time and communicating issue. If your clients are complaining about the receptionist that they waste time or do not communicate with their patient, and patient need communication, you need to communicate to the clients, you need to persuade the clients, you need to encourage the clients, because the people, they are patient, they are already sick and come to your hospital, so you need to talk with them perfectly while in waiting for the doctor or for the process to be done. So as an HR personnel, you must systematically conduct a job analysis on that. The goal is to define the receptionist task, challenge and skill comprehensive to improve clarity, performance and patient experience. Because if a researcher do not know their role or their procedure or their job, they may not perform well, because you have to get a TOR. As a HR, you employ a receptionist, you must give a TOR to that receptionist. He or she must know what they are there for. By employing observation, interview, survey, mapping and recording overview, HR personnel can comprehensively understand the receptionist role. Because if you don't interview the receptionist too, before you hire a receptionist, you got to interview that receptionist. You have to understand that receptionist performance. That is, you got to observe them. You got to improve clarity on their job. That is, writing a TOR clearly. And their patient experience. You got to get a patient experience. If researcher is not someone that will be harsh, because some patients come already, they are traumatized. So you got to be someone that have patience, that how to control their temper or their emotion. And how, as a HR, how can you work with that person or that receptionist to make them up to standard if they are not up to standard? Once, you got to choose data gathering method again. And this is a combination approach. Ensure both quantity and quality insight. One would be direct observation, as I said before in the first one. We'll come back to this one again. You got to observe them directly. You have to sit almost like a patient or sit down in the corner and watch the receptionist try action with the patient. That's a direct observation. And you got to take an approach that they observe the receptionist doing various shape. You got to all see them. You got to see their shape. All the receptionists, how the first or receptionist interact with customer, and how the next receptionist interact with customer. And also you got to do a frequency and type of task, that they check in, check out call triangle, check in, check out call triangle. You got to do that. You got to do a time spent per task to access bottleneck. That means you can keep one receptionist from in the morning up to the night hour. No, that person will not perform well. You will lose a patient. Even as a normal being, you work at least 8 hours. When the receptionist come from to work by let's say 8 o'clock, at the 4 o'clock should knock off. There should be another receptionist because the hospital did not close. A hospital operate throughout. But you have to have a receptionist there, so you cannot keep one person from 8 to 12 or to the next day. Then I will say, know how to communicate good. And receptionists got to have a communication style with patient and staff. So you got to observe this or receptionist and train them to get all these strategies. And next, when you are doing that, the benefit will be identify practical workflow challenge and time allocation issues. That means when they are tutorial with this of the idea, they will have to work 3 days. He gave the man 8 hours, or he gave the woman her 8 hours. She will have to come to work and work 3 days and train. If you train her and bring her to that stage, she ought to perform very well. That your patient will not have to complain on that particular person. And you got to use another structure, what they call structural interview. That is participant, receptionist supervisor and other hospital staff contest. That you got to take performance. You got to take a frequency review, as I said. So all this help to improve the ability of the receptionist as a competent human resource manager. Your task inventory analysis. You gotta clarify detail of code, like the criteria and patient flow. You gotta know how often patient come into the building and have to go out. So if you see patient coming in a large number, maybe a 4 or 5 patient coming per day, so then you don't need to have a one receptionist. You gotta have 2, or if possible you got 3. All depend based on your customer or based on the patient that are coming to the hospital. That alone can make you to have 1 receptionist or 2 receptionists or 3 receptionists at a particular time. In doing this, so based on that, you have to get a recommendation for that job analysis. When you are do all that, you do your recommendation to your HR or to your supervisor or to your headmaster. You got to define the role and responsibility of the receptionist. You got to tell exactly, oh yeah, the receptionist work overtime. So I think we have to get a 2 receptionists to work there. We have to have a 4 receptionists, or we got to do shift overtime. One person work today by from morning to 8 o'clock, from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and another receptionist come from 4 o'clock to maybe 10 or 12 o'clock in the night. And if you continue, you can have another receptionist from 12 or from 10 to the next morning. So you gotta get a 3 shift. That alone can reduce the stress on the receptionist, because receptionist job is very difficult. These people interact with customers throughout. If you have a better receptionist, you will always get a good customer service. That means people always praise the hospital. Oh yeah, when we go to the hospital, people will always take us good. They even make you feel good at the end. You may even feel, cute. When you are sick and at the hospital, you may feel healthy from the receptionist way of greeting you, communicating with you, handling you, and tell you got to wait for your time. Please come and sit there way. You want to drink some water, and all this one can make the patient to feel healthy. It's not only the treatment alone, not the tablet or the drugs or the injection they're going to give, but the communication alone can make the patient feel more better. Enhanced training program, as I previously said, focus on medical terminology, customer service, conflict resolution, and effective proficiency. When you teach it or research on all these things, you got to recommend all these to the institution that yeah, we have a customer service or receptionist, but we have to train these people. We got to train them to focus on medical technology. You got to use medical technology. Get your medical receptionist, then speaking jargon from a medicine fee or a jargon on the military fee. You got to use the military, the hospital jargon. You got to get used to it. You got to use the medical jargon, and you got to know customer service. Conflict resolution, you gotta get a background on a conflict resolution if you become a receptionist to a hospital, because that deal with conflict. These people are all they come with, as I said, they come with different problems, so you gotta know how to talk with them. And then you gotta do a recommendation called implementing performance metric. That's a trace wait time. When you do a track wait time, you do a track wait time. A track wait time, track wait time, inquiry resolution rate, patient feedback, and form desk efficiency. You gotta know the track of the waiting time for a customer. That means you gotta do the recommendation. Say, oh, for every customer, at least they should be able to wait for 15 minutes, and then you send them into another room. And the receptionist had to know the time frame when to send patient out and when to send them in. You got to do a recommendation for inquiry resolution rate. You got to do a recommendation for patient feedback. You got to get a box there that patient may read a feedback to say, oh, I came to the hospital, they did not treat me well, there were a lot of problems. So you got to get all the feedback, then you got to handle, or you got to do a proper recommendation that yes, that got a suggestion box that patient will be put in. Then based on that, the management can use that to improve the receptionist. And another recommendation, in doing all this activity, when you are doing all this, it will improve patient experience and operational efficiency. The receptionist role and responsibility shall be explicitly documented, emphasizing work condition and essential skill. So you got to improve the environment of the receptionist. You got to be clean, well conditioned, and essential skill. You gotta have skill, as I said. You gotta get a skill of conflict resolution. You gotta have the skill of patient. You gotta get a skill of tracking time frame. You gotta get a skill of inquiring resolution rate. So you have to do that job interview. Then come to job description improvement. Recommendation on job description improvement. The recommendation should be working condition to include shift structure and work environment. That should be one of your recommendations on the job description. Is what shaping structure and work environment. That is specifying the receptionist will work in a fast-paced hospital environment, often on rotational shift schedule, including morning, evening, and weekend. As I previously said, you cannot keep one receptionist from morning to evening, and you can't keep a receptionist throughout the week. You gotta get a receptionist for in the morning, and you gotta get another one for evening. And weekend, you gotta get special receptionist for that. Receptionist gotta be there for that. So if you do that, then requirement prolonged period as a front desk equipped with computer, phone, and health system. That is, a researcher should have a cell phone at the receptionist desk, and should have a computer that will to track down information and send. And also have a phone that customer are there. Maybe if the doctor are delaying to treat or other thing, you can call. You say, oh, you have an emergency. Maybe there's an emergency. You bring someone in an emergency situation. You got to call. Yeah, the researcher have a cell phone to call. And then another recommendation for job description, you gotta get essential skill attribute to include a job specification, efficient communication, and sympathy. Emphasis on candidate must demonstrate excellent verbal and written communication skill, the ability to listen actively and exhibit sympathy towards patients, especially for managing inquiry, reducing waiting time, frustration, and maintaining a professional, patient-centered front desk environment. Your receptionists have to have the ability to writing communication. You gotta know how to write. You gotta know how to type. You gotta have a computer skill. You gotta have of writing skill, not just computer but handwriting skill. And you gotta get a conflict resolution. See, these recommendations can improve. These are the two recommendations that can improve. That is the working condition. When you got to do you got to make a working condition or the environment very safety and clean, tidy, with all the equipment, with your computer, with your desk phone, and have a good receptionist there. That's one recommendation. Two, you can have a receptionist and don't know how to write. But this is a multi stage. A receptionist got to know how to type. Yeah, how to type, and got a good writing skill. The researcher got to have a good writing skill and got to have a background in conflict resolution. Got to know time frame or waiting time frame to reduce the waiting time frame, because if the doctor forget a bit, you have to hold your cell phone and call your doctor. Oh, doc, there's a patient here waiting, and the person has been waiting for 5 or 6 minutes. So the doctor ought to say, okay, send the patient in. So that's just a few recommendations I want to give, and I want to stop here today, and then next class time we will go forward. So thanks.